Hi everyone, I'm Tim Von Rieden here at cgcookie.com, and welcome to this new character series where I will take you through the sketching, the coloring, and the rendering of a character. And I'm doing this because I noticed a bunch of you guys are still watching the first character series I did about a year and a half ago, and I thought it was about time that I go back into characters and show you guys some new tips and techniques I've learned since then and share them with you. So in this first video, I'm going to take you through my new sketching process, and that involves drawing a stick figure, laying an quick anatomy sketch over it, and then doing a final sketch on top of that. So with that, let's get started. So I've had this character idea in my head for some time now, and I've been sketching different versions of her on my sketch pad, trying to figure out, what her personality is and how that'll reflect in what she's wearing. And the main things that I wanted to add to this character was that she was a tougher chick, she has this big red hair, and that she is with this mysterious rectangular object that she's always carrying. So I think this is going to be a fun concept for me to explore, and I'm glad I can be able to share it with you guys. So I'm opening up Photoshop and I'm creating an 11 by 14 canvas set at a 300 dpi resolution. And to start things off, I make a new layer and I start making a gesture drawing out of a stick figure. And I'm doing this to capture a movement of the character, where as before my characters tend to be more static in their position. So by doing a quick stick figure gesture, I'm trying to capture more of a character personality behind the character, rather than having the pose be very generic and three-quarter turned. And I'm using only a circle hard edge brush for all of this, with my shape dynamics and transfer turned on. So on top of that new stick figure layer, I like to do a proportion anatomy layer. And this is to take the initial gesture layer that I drew out and make it more anatomically correct and fit with what I want the final render to look like. And it's funny that people tell me that the best they can draw is a stick figure, where that's literally what I'm starting with almost every single time when I draw out a character. So with practice, you can do these things too. Just take it step by step. And this step seems to be the hardest for a lot because you're drawing a quick anatomy sketch and you want things to be like perfect. You want every muscle and bone to be in the right position. And I'm telling you, don't, fixate on that at this point. You're still in the early stages where you should just be focusing on the overall concept of the character and is it reading well to the viewer. And the one thing I wanted to play with is her long red hair that's pulled back in a ponytail, and I wanted there to be movement in the hair as well as the figure itself. And I'm being mindful of that rectangle object that she's holding, and I really wanted to incorporate that into the concept and make it look more like it was something that was a part of her, rather than it being some idea that was added later on. And now I'm lowering the first layer's opacity and I'm making a new layer on top of it, and on this new layer I'm refining the edges and really trying to bring the concept to life. And sometimes if I'm going into this character concept blindly, I'll just do a nude pose and I'll add clothes later on, because I don't know if she's going to be wearing different objects, like if it's going to be a jacket, a shirt, or a sweater, whatever it may be. So for this character, since I kind of had an idea of what I wanted her to be wearing and I had different sketches of her down, I'm going in and I'm drawing the clothing right on this layer. So now I'm thinking about different details like wrinkles that'll be in the different clothing, and I'm adding more where I know there would be different folds, especially in the pants where the knee is and lower. I'll try to add more folds where more on the thigh area. Since it's tighter around that area, I'm not going to add as much folding to it. So I'm going around, I'm just giving it a nice, outline to the entire character. And I'm not worrying at this point about how clean it is, because this is still just giving me an idea of what I'm going to do on top of it. So I like to think of my line art, since it's not my strong point, I like to think of it as more of a foundation that I can work on top of. So I really like working with color, so usually I'll work with my line arts very, very rough and very sketchy. And then I'll go in with my colors and I'll really then refine and make it look clean. And when I'm doing this portion, I usually like to keep my transfer turned off. And that way it kind of allows me not to cheat. It allows me not to try to start adding any value shading to it. And it really makes me think about my different line works. And this first pose is something that I'm more used to doing, which is a very static standing pose. So that's why I like exploring different options with the character and creating 2, 3, maybe more different ideas of what the character might be doing and how they might be standing. So it's something that I definitely recommend is don't just stick with one, character concept as soon as you sketch it out. Really try to do a few more, and you never know. You might surprise yourself, and you might end up going with one of the newer ones because you like it more. And not only that, but then you start to think about your character and what different poses would they be doing, and you start to kind of develop a personality for them. And the more that you do that, the more it'll come across in your concept work. And I really like the direction with the second pose because the first one is very, standard general concept pose. But then this one has more of a personality to it. So you can see she's kind of more of a rough chick. She seems to be almost like a mechanic or something along those lines. And that's something that, it's very easy to read just by looking at it. So as I'm doing this, I'm trying to sketch out, the quick ideas, and then I might add simple details like mud or other things that really kind of let you know what kind of a character this is. So she's not afraid to get dirty. She won't be the princess type of character. And when I do concept art, I try to keep in mind that I want to be able to see most of the character as well, because even though I'm trying to keep this more of an illustrative concept piece where it has a movement to it, it has some personality behind it, I still want it to read well to whoever may be viewing it, whether it be if I pass this along to a modeler after I'm done or the art director. I want the concept to be able to be easily read and come across clearly. Now for this third pose, I was initially going to cut this section of the video out because it's me fumbling on my own concept work, it's me making mistakes. But then I realized it's important for you guys to see that when I'm doing my concept work, I'm not making it perfect every time. I'm not going in and I'm not doing it step by step and I'm nailing it every single time. There are times that I make mistakes, and I wanted you guys to see that, even when I do make mistakes, I try to work through it and I try to push through and create something that I am proud of. So in here, I thought maybe it was the pose, so then I turned it and I went back to my comfortable 3/4 pose, and I thought maybe that would fix it and I could move on because I really liked the second pose and I thought that would be the one I could work with. But I tried to work through it, and then I was thinking, you know what? No, let's try doing something different. And then I put the box down first, and then I had her work on top of it. And it almost forces the viewer to recognize that this object is important to this character, and it defines a little bit about who this character is. So then from there, I'm going to go in with my clean line art, and this one's a little more tough in the sense that I have some foreshortening going on in the knee. I'm going to have her being bent over a little bit, sitting on that object. So I'm thinking about the way that, the different anatomy structure would move and be forced to work on top of this object. So once again, I'm adding the hair, adding the different pants details, really adding the wrinkles around the knees. And then with each box, you may have noticed that I'm adding little details that are, different on each. And that's just to get a different feel, once again, because I might like one detail I do in the first one, but if I, continue doing that first detail throughout, I never know if there might be something else that I like more. So I'm going in and doing faces on the line art sketch is tough for me because I like it to be, perfect right away, and I just got to keep reminding myself that it doesn't have to be perfect when it's this early in the stage of concept art, because usually I cover most of the line art with color anyways. But I like to go in and at least make it, correct in the way that's laid out. And that way I can, at least be satisfied knowing that, and then I can move on. So in here, I'm just resizing them so that they're more in proportion with each other. And then I'm going to crop it, and I'm going to call this sketch done. So thanks for watching the first part of creating a character, and in the next part, we're going to be laying down colors.